Welcome, everybody. My name is Brock Doubles. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the IOTA framework. And the idea is we want to measure metrics that matter. For example, when I first join a company in consulting, I like to sit in on the weekly business review. One such review at a very large company that was formerly owned by a guy named Bezos. Our weekly business review, the metrics that we had came in a packet of 9 pages. The meeting was over 2.5 hours long. So what I'd like to ask, and what I asked them is, what were the metrics that mattered? And let's explore that. A little bit about me. I specialize in innovation and going 0 to 1. Metrics really matter to me. As a trained scientist, I believe that there are 3 things that we can bring to the product world, which is validity. I'm measuring what I say I'm measuring. Reliability, that when I measure it, it's consistent over time, place, and people. And replicability, that the way that I've designed this and the measurement can be done by other people so that it's just not just Brock magic, okay? So I've worked for some of the larger companies in the United States, and I've brought some of this magic, or more or less just bringing in some science, which is metrics that matter. How do we measure things? And some of them are a little bit different than others. And what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through an allegory. Just think of Flopdicius. Do you remember the Peloponnesian War between the Greeks and the people of Troy? Well, Flopdicius landed on the shores of Troy and he says, "We will disrupt and own the markets at Troy with our superior tech. Our KPIs are simple. We will breach the gates of Troy with our disruptive technology. Our star metric? Well, the number of warriors that we can get within their walls." But then a key analyst, Pivotosius, spoke up and says, "But shouldn't we validate if the Trojans actually want our project?" Flopdicius dismissed them and said, "The market research is clear. Everyone wants a wooden parrot. The bigger, the better." The team worked day and night, measuring their IOTA all wrong, and Flopdicius obsessed over the A for activities, ignoring the rest. This is common amongst project management, where we say, what are you doing? How long will it take? How long will it cost to do this? What is the team size that you have? What are the deliverables? What are the milestones? And with this type of metric in hand, they were confident that they understood that this was a job to be done, and that they were sure that their assumptions were correct, that what they were building is what the people of Troy would want. Meanwhile, in private, unknown to Flopdicius, Pivoticius conducted interviews that revealed that the Trojans actually worshipped horses and took great pride in their cavalry. However, Flopdicius went forward and he says, parrots are the thing. And what's the IOTA, the impact? Well, we'll make so much money once they're inside. Well, that's not really a metric, is it? Outcomes of the users? Well, the users will love us eventually. Is that a metric we can measure? Well, that seems like wishful thinking. Technologies, well, everybody wants a wooden parrot, and look at how many people will be able to stick inside there in order to open the gates when they bring it in and go to bed at night. And activities, look at how busy we are. We have increased warrior capacity by 200% and construction time by 50%. And Flopdicius was fully in. And what he was really excited about was some of the innovations that they've developed over time in developing this massive wooden parrot. In fact, even the wings worked when the men pulled the levers inside. So they brought the massive wooden sculpture, the parrot of the Trojan parrot, in front of the gates. But Flopdicius and his people were met with riotous laughter and immediate pelting of rotten olives. Unfortunately, Flopdicius had obsessed over staying busy, activities, and T for the technology that he's building, making assumptions that the outcomes of experience were something that the people of Troy would love, and the impact of revenue, that they were solving a job or performing a job that people wanted to be done, that there was value being delivered, enough value that people would pay for it on a consistent basis in order to keep the doors open at the company. Well, in the postmortem, the scrum of scrums, it was brought forward, we measured IOTA all wrong. Are we actually creating sustainable value? Well, we assumed we were. Are the outcomes of experience great? Well, we thought they would be because we know the customer and we know what we like, and the customer probably likes what we like. The technology's built, well, who doesn't want a wooden parrot? And activities, well, we certainly work day and night to get this done. Pivot Odysseus raised his hand for permission to speak. He says, your problem isn't that you just built a massive wooden parrot, and it is an amazing parrot. Flopdisius intervened. He says, yes, the craftsmanship, the detail, the retractable wings, the mobile siege pecking. Pivot Odysseus interrupted and says, it's that you spent way too much time and resources on a single idea based upon vanity metrics. We didn't question any of our core assumptions here. What were the metrics that really mattered to the people of Troy? Did you ask the Trojans if they wanted a giant bird? Instead of coming to a single costly wooden monstrosity, we could have constructed a series of miniature Trojan creatures, maybe goats, macaws, goldfish, anything, something cheaper, faster, less expensive that helped us to understand the market before we were fully in. Well, they went away and they tried it, and they put these prototypes out in front of the gates. And as they watched from the back end, they saw the gate slowly open, and a few of the Trojans stepped out and they grabbed the horse and they said, oh, this is a beautiful horse. This looks wonderful. Well, they brought it back inside, and to say the least, Flopdisius was devastated. He kicked over the remaining prototypes and he says, it was never about the parrot, was it? No, cousin, it never was. With that, they returned to the camp to present their findings and create the Trojan horse. With the Trojan horse, the people of Troy were amazed. They said, wow, this is quite a tribute to us and our love of horses. Let's bring it inside and celebrate. We are truly the superior civilization, and the Greeks have failed. And now they need to run knowing that they have lost this encounter. So the problem here was that they didn't actually have a lean siege strategy. In fact, proving the horse was the clear market winner helped launch in full-scale production, and he was able to call on his most skilled Greek craftsmen, Marketicius, Iterodotus, and build the Trojan horse at scale. And what's really important here with IOTA is defining the problem, questioning our core assumptions and our claims about revenue impact and metrics, and focusing on value creation and jobs to be done. If this is a job to be done that nobody is willing to pay for, then it's probably not a product that can deliver revenue, at least not with confidence and regularity. So the key is when we're getting this go-to-market strategy, we can use IOTA, which is impact on revenue, outcomes of experience, technologies that do a job, activities that show that we're working at our greatest effort. So once put outside, the Trojans took the bait immediately. And thus was the fall of Troy, not from the famed Trojan parrot, but the later iteration of the Trojan horse. The idea here was, with a growth vision, there's really only a few ways that we can look at metrics that matter. And the main one is profit. What is the revenue that we're bringing in? What is the value that we provide? We can also work on cost, such as understanding improvement of productivity, decrease resource usage, and become more efficient. Or with revenue, we can increase the number of customers, and we can increase the value of customers. In this case, a real case study exists with a former employer called Amazon Style. We went into the market with a lot of assumptions. Our weekly business review document had over 9 pages of metrics on it, with over 2.5 hours worth of discussion. We assumed that the metrics were correct. One of our core metrics is our rent per day and our staffing. Unfortunately, we paid what we did per square foot based upon the mall's promises about traffic, saying that over 1,077 people would walk by this corner lot a day. And at a 26% conversion from traffic, that should be 280 people. That means that the average spend at our store should be $70.26 in order to have an 8% margin, which means that we actually have to have a 50% conversion rate in order to cover that. In doing a market analysis of what was being sold within 15 miles of the store using the Amazon platform, we saw that, yeah, we could actually hit that pretty close. In fact, our actual order size was only about $3.30 below what people were ordering online. However, we became very obsessed with markets metrics that we could control. What you see here is a funnel, and this is broken down into jobs to be done. The difficulty here is that we actually had 5 different principal product managers that worked on this funnel. And at each stage in the funnel, they believed that if it was red, it was their problem. So awareness, we had very little awareness with our advertising and our marketing. And we depended upon word of mouth and foot traffic in order to get people into our store. Find and discover. We had created a completely new way to shop that won us Modern Retailer's Best Modern Retailer Award. However, many people were really enjoyed this new way to shop, but they had difficulty learning it. And in many ways, what we had to call it was Amazplaining. Yes, I understand that you like to shop like this, but you're in Amazon now. We do it this way, which means that you now need to use your phone, scan a QR code, order it up to the changing room. It'll all be waiting for you. You can try it on, and then we'll have it ready for you down at the register. Once people got into the changing room, we saw that we had a 65% conversion rate, which is about 15% over what we had estimated in our IOTA. Unfortunately, not many people were going up to the changing room. In fact, many of our numbers were showing that our actual versus expected were down significantly. So when we're looking at 9 pages of weekly business review metrics, which are the ones that matter? And at each stage of this funnel, different things are happening. And it may be that the great success that is happening in the changing room is actually influenced by steps ahead. These metrics matter early on, such as awareness. How can we increase the frequency of travel into our store? How can we increase the number of products purchased during each visit? What are the elements that promote that? And we began looking at things that occur at that specific moment in the funnel rather than thinking about the holistic goal of the customer. And that is customer obsession. And this is the O in IOTA, which is outcomes of experience. What did I expect to see here? Why did I come in? What do I want to accomplish with this visit? And if we can provide that, we can actually provide the sale, which is impact on revenue. And what we began to see is that we were actually very successful with what we were doing, but we had completely misunderstood actual foot traffic. We had trusted somebody else's number. And even though we were making some of the metrics that we hoped we had made, we weren't making the sales that we needed to make. This led to lots of innovation at each point of the funnel. But what ended up coming out of this was just like the Trojan parrot. You just don't have the brands I want. And by focusing on that conversion rate of the changing room as the key success point in our entire store experience, led to misunderstanding of where we should focus and what the customer needed. And if we don't give what the customer needs, we won't get what we need in sales, frequency, and word of mouth. And this was part of the problem that we faced was, okay, we've got a really cool changing room. We've got a really cool form of shopping, and the store is really cool. We nailed the operations and activations. We just didn't have the brands. And just like the people of Troy, they wanted a horse. The people of Glendale, California, they wanted something other than the brands that we were selling. And that's why we weren't hitting our numbers, as well as the fact that we had accepted assumptions about traffic, conversion, and quality of sale coming into our store. And that led us into a dark road, which led to the eventual closing of the store in 2023 after barely 2 years of traction and having won the Modern Retail Award. We had 7 stores that were being opened. We ended up closing the 2 that we had. So IOTA, what I suggest is focus first on your impact on revenue. Second, what is the outcome of experience? Are you creating the value that people are willing to pay for to solve the problem that they have? Technology. Hey, yeah, be innovative. Do things that cut costs. We know that that's important. When we cut costs, we increase our margins. Activities. Yeah, it's great to have a motivated, talented, creative workforce. But in the end, you have to understand that rather than working backwards from activities, we need to work forward from what our expected revenue is going to be and how we are going to not only meet our basic costs, but surpass them into profit. Can I answer any questions for you?
Yes, you can. I have a question, but if anyone else wants to go first, sure, Mohammed Ali.
Thank you, Brock, for this enlightening talk. Um, so, in this IOTA, impact becomes the first thing and the most important thing that we have to measure. Does it make sense to associate the SMART framework of being specific, having goals that are specific, measurable, achievable in that I part of the IOTA, the impact part? Is that how you measure impact, by having SMART goals, or is there any other better way to measure impact? Because once we know what the impact is, the other 3 phases, they fall in line, right? So in my view, that becomes the most important part to measure.
Well, that's a good way of approaching it. But what if your initial conditions are incorrect, such as the amount of mall traffic passing by your store each day, and your expectation that you're going to gather 26% of that traffic and that 50% of those people are going to make a purchase in your store at an average cost of this in order to meet your base assumptions to keep the store open?
So then how do you tackle that if not through this?
Well, it's just like anything. You set up a lemonade stand, you say, I expect that 5 people are going to come down my street. Do I have to make all this lemonade at once? Because if I do, then I waste the lemons, the sugar, and the water, right? And how much do I actually have to make in order to validate my sitting out here in the sun all day by selling glasses of lemonade? And just about every company is here not necessarily for the benefit of society, but to make a profit. And if our profits are based upon, if our profit metrics are based upon vanity metrics, then we are typically going to be led astray. I can
So
tell you
build
that,
fast, fail fast.
go ahead.
Sorry. So build fast, fail fast, and then you find your sweet spot.
Yes, those are important, but also validate your core assumptions. So there are some things that you cannot actually get away from, such as the cost of doing business. So for example, if it costs this much per square footage, if it costs this much for your employees, if it costs this much for your insurance, these are all things that are in the cost of operations and doing business. And if you can't come up with a model where the value that you're creating creates purchase that surpasses those core costs, then you're not focusing on impact on revenue.
Thank you. Perfect. Makes sense.
So I'm
Good question, thank
curious,
you.
and this may be a silly question, but say we follow the IOTA model, what's the litmus test you have for we're not following a vanity IOTA model of sorts, right? So what if I've written things and convinced myself, yeah, I've got this right? Is there a way to test that where we have the right framework in place now?
Well, what's really important is to have your core assumptions and claims in place, that these are my real costs of doing business. And then what we have to do is say, what is it that I want to become? What are the outcomes of revenue that I want to see? Are they reasonable? Then what we have to do is say, and this is where Mohammed, you said, work fast, fail fast. If I can test multiple ideas consecutively, iteratively, then I have greater confidence that I've tried many ideas to look at market enthusiasm for what I'm bringing forward. So before I burn all the boats at the shore, like Flopdipsis did, what I want to do is make sure that I actually have a way to get in the gates. And that's where that multivariate prototyping comes into play. And rather than focusing on building that one big wooden parrot and showing how busy we are in project management, doing Scrum poker and saying, I'm going to do this, it takes this long, this is my milestone, I'm in alignment with this. And, it's Jeff's fault, I'm waiting on Jeff. And then the technology. Oh, well, look at the team, we did it, we made this thing. Well, okay, cool. Is anybody using it yet? No, we just need good marketing. Okay, well, um, you're going to market after the fact. You're going to create a market for a thing that you've bought before you understand that there's even interest in the thing that you've made. That seems backwards. So for me, when I think of 0 to 1 and I think of startup or even a mature multinational corporation, and in this case, Amazon Style was a startup being sponsored by a multinational corporation as part of its operations. Unfortunately, many of the core assumptions were incorrect, and many of the metrics that we were focusing on were also incorrect. We had all of these products that we felt, oh, if we could only position these better in the store. We had one situation where we said, well, really the star of the show is our changing room. We've seen people tweeting out about this and saying how wonderful it is. If we could only explain the changing room so that they would get in there, I'm sure they would buy more. But in the end, it's just like Angela said, you don't have the brands that I want. I mean, this is really cool. And I really enjoyed it. And I tweeted out some cool stuff as a social influencer, but I don't like your brands. And this doesn't fit my lifestyle. And, I might buy something as just kind of a token, but otherwise, it was a cool experience. I hope you make it.